I think your preference for Bitcoin depends on your duration and how often you want to move in and out of the market and like how high your like crypto IQ is. So the longer your duration and the lower your crypto IQ, the more you should just buy Bitcoin and just go back to work and just not worry about anything, because there is execution risk in ETH long term. It's a lot of stuff that can happen.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, DGens and DGenettes, to another episode of the Alfalfa Podcast. We are four radically moderate entrepreneurs and investors swimming in the messy gray ocean, serving up alpha in money, politics, and life. We are Nick Urbani, Eric Johansson, Steven Cesaro, and I am Arman Asadi. All links at alfalfapod.com. Make sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening or you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on our socials. And if you want to hop into the party in between episodes, head into our Discord, which is also at the same link. So we're experimenting this week. We just made a pretty big decision right before this episode. About 10 episodes or so in, I think we really figured out that this show is three distinct segments: money, politics, and life. And it really added a lot of structure to the show. And I think we really honestly started to find our groove and take off at that point. And it's been an amazing journey. And what we've decided to do, another experiment that we're going to run with, is we're actually going to break this up into three separate episodes. Sometimes our second segment, our third segment gets cut a little short, and we want to go a little bit deeper. And we also want to create these as distinct episodes so you can refer to them as you like. So this is going to be our money episode. So let's dive into the Alfalfa round and get after it.
Okay. Alfalfa. I go first.
And I should say what we're diving into today for money is bear rally or new bull market. So let's still begin with the Alfalfa round.
Okay, so bear rally or new bull. Starting with my Alfalfa round, I'm feeling this bear market rally or new bull just shoving itself right up into me. I flipped net short last week and was enjoying the cool, calm waters of profitability on my net short. And then we left for Mexico. It was a pretty big weekend we had over in Mexico. And I did not close any of that. And here I am now. The cool waters of profitability have turned into just stormy seas. I'm happy because I'm long ETH still, in my HODL bag. And ETH seems to be performing. So what I did was when I got back to the computer, I closed down some shit stomp shorts. I'm still short DeFi coins and shit coins. I'm still hanging on there, even though they're pushing at me. But I'm now back more towards neutral than I am net short, and that did not feel good.
Well, you and I had very opposite experiences this week. Beginning of last week, I've been buying for a while and kind of putting on some short hedges here and there, but I've been mostly accumulating since that huge dip we had in June. I went pretty long the beginning of last week. I think I went 75% long, all ETH. And I remember I got up at 6 a.m. to fly to Tulum last week. And right as I was getting on the plane, I saw the print come in, 9.1, and I saw the candle just go down. And I'm like, oh no. And then the plane took off. I had no internet. And I'm just on this flight like, oh, Jesus, what have I done? I'm so stupid. Such a bulltard. And then the plane landed, and then I got internet again, and I pulled up the chart, and the prices were up. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is good. This is gonna be a good weekend. Like, the market doesn't care anymore. And
so you had two more watermelon margaritas.
I had so many watermelon margaritas last week. It was glorious. But yeah, I'm long, and I've been writing covered calls. I decided to basically go uber long, but take off a bunch of my upside via call writing. So
you go like at the money call writing?
No, like stuff that's probably like 10% chance of being in the money, roughly 2 days out, just using some kind of like volatility to write those slash kind of resistance areas. Basic idea is to just pull as much out as I need to pay for rent and mortgage, and I'm just gonna ride this thing at this point, unless I see something really compelling to go short again. But I'm probably gonna look to just buy more if we dip from here.
Are you constantly closing those and then writing more?
I'm just letting them roll off and expire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so on my end, I luckily trimmed some of the SPY puts
Nice.
last week. I'd say about half of them. Obviously, the puts that had like shorter expirations, they were in the money, so thought I'd take advantage of that. Didn't buy any ETH in the last week. I did, for fun, take a little flyer on a Cardano short, which ended badly.
Oh.
Yeah, right when I saw...
I was right there with you, buddy, on my hedge. So at least you didn't short Matic.
Eric and I are just like staring at each other, glaring at each other like, your shorts are bad. Your shorts are bad too. And just like
I didn't
sweating.
bring a laptop to Mexico. There's nothing I could do, so I didn't even check the price.
I bet that's beautifully
roll
freeing,
with it.
though.
Yeah, just roll with it.
Brought out the laptop for a few minutes and considered it. Anyway, as soon as ETH busted over 1,200, I was like, I got to get rid of this thing. So luckily it was sized down to a very small amount, but wasn't a good fun bet. Anyway, it's done with. We're moving on.
I was mostly just watching Nick on the edge of his seat
Refreshing.
between laptop out, laptop back in the bag. I'm here. Laptop out, laptop back in the bag. I bought some ETH last week. Before like right before this rally, but unfortunately I was thinking that I basically took the amount I wanted to buy over the next 2 weeks and assumed that we were just going to continue sitting at about $1,100, $1,000 ETH or possibly lower and get back into that like 900, 800 range. So I only put down 25% of what I wanted to. And then just watched this rally happen and was like, well, fuck that.
Yeah.
You gonna trade it, or is that going straight to the hodl bag?
No, it's always the hodl bag. There's almost nothing that I've sold for the purpose of like rebuying it at a lower price other than NFTs.
What was the text you sent in the thread? It was like, trading is for lunatics.
Yeah.
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 It is.
I would love to explore that actually today a little bit. But yeah, it's. I mean, what was Steven saying? It was like, I think I'm going to pick up a new job of just like trolling people on Twitter and like getting into these like finding these trolls and out trolling them.
very
basically.
good
Free
at
time
that.
on my hands now.
And I responded, I'm
trade
like,
as much.
that's not as crazy as trading. So that sounds like a better life. And
would
yet
be
that
so
would
good at
stress
that,
the fuck out of me. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been going at some Bitcoiners the last couple of days. It's been fun.
Yeah, they're fucking toxic.
Can we get me to like 100,000 followers? I can really do some damage.
Sure.
I promise you.
Just entertain
give me.
entertain us and it'll only go
You
up.
promised to
that
shill the
firepower.
Discord's bags?
Oh my God, yes. I'll shill everything you have.
So how do we go into this market? Is this a bear market rally? Is this
Well, it looked like
Is
ETH
this
was
a new
pumping
bull?
a little bit.
What's the number on this little rally we're at? What's the percentage?
I guess
what is the price right
Over the last
60%?
over the last 7
And
days.
we went up
60?
60% at one point.
Right.
Wow.
over a 7 day period, up
Yeah,
60%.
Crazy volatility.
So would you call that a bull market beginning?
It's hard to rally like 80% plus off lows, which is what we did. Like 85, we probably were like 85% off lows, and call it like a bear market. It's a hell of a bear market rally. I mean,
Hell of a rally.
It's possible, I guess, but it's a pretty large market cap asset. Like, I don't think the bear is over, but also I do think crypto has bottomed. I think ETH and Bitcoin have bottomed. I'm probably like 65% sure of that at this point. I think there's a good chance we scare people and like kind of retest that range again. It's certainly possible. But I don't know. I don't think we're going to see 400. Not this year anyway. It's possible.
So
we
it
might
was,
see
let's just
see it
say
next
like
year.
a 50-50 before, but now it's looking like it's more of like a 35% chance to go back into that territory.
I was like 50-50 after that nasty June capitulation. I was like, maybe that was it. Like that was pretty gnarly. A lot of forced selling, a lot of panic.
I think we talked about it like two episodes ago, and
Yeah,
we were
we
like, it's
did.
either 40 or 40% likely to go lower from here. 50.
Right.
It was like roughly 50-50, somewhere around there. Have to check the tape. I think the mistake I made was, I was assigning probabilities to these two outcomes, right? But the greedy part of me was like, well, I'm going to put my bids in for the one that I would like the most, right? Like instead, what I should have done was like, okay, if I think it's a 50-50 split, I should have took the dollar amount that I planned on putting into ETH and assign them, like allocated by the probability. So 50% that it's not going any lower. So just buy it here.
Well, you're talking as if you missed your chance for good, is what it sounds like.
I don't think I have, but I think that would have been the smarter way to play it. Where I was clearly assigning probabilities to these two outcomes. I wish I would have,
This is the time that I personally hate more than anything.
I would be ecstatic if we never get a chance to go back down there. Like, I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm still. I mean, we just had a long conversation last week. I just re-listened to our episode. We did a pretty good job. The three of us missing the Niles.
I was listening to it. I'm like, you're gonna get liquidated.
We're missing the personality. We did a good job.
Literally the most personality-less episode we've ever done.
Yeah.
Eric really brought the personality last episode. I was charmed listening to it.
Well, thank you. So I was re-listening to that, and I thought we brought some compelling reasons why the economy could go into something that looks pretty ugly for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that to me resonated with our original stance that, like, I'm not into calling bottoms, but like the idea that we could have like a long sideways accumulation period, and like this won't just be like this V-shaped recovery back to all-time highs. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that notion still. And like, if you missed it at 1200 or something, like, I certainly entertain the notion that you could get that back.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and looked at 2018, which was the last kind of like bear market, like obvious bear market we all agree upon. There were 11 bear market rallies, the largest of which was 110%. It was obvious.
For which asset?
This is ETH, sorry.
ETH.
Yeah, so this was an.
What about Bitcoin though?
I actually have it right here.
ETH now is like probably like Bitcoin was then.
Okay, so last Bitcoin had 14 bear market rallies. The max being 42.5%, the median being 8.6%.
Damn, we smashed
That's
that.
cool. So we did double that.
There were 6 that were above 10%. So there were like significant bear market rallies. This one's 60%,
and not a single one like it.
More off the bottom. Like if you measure this from the bottom, we went from like 880 to 16 something. It was almost. It's probably like 85-90% rally.
These were measured on
way more than we had
weeklies, on weekly candles, like open close, not on the wicks.
Oh, you should measure them on the wicks though.
Yeah,
I think.
probably should have done that.
Yeah, be curious what it was on the wick, but it was probably not 80.
Right.
Almost. No
so
chance.
this was like an impressive rally, regardless.
Sure. Any way you spin it, yeah.
I think the reasons this could be a new bull is like obviously we have the merge coming up, and it could pull us into this like ETH denominated, dominated crypto market, and like price action. Just this price action right now kind of fuels us into the merge, where the merge kind of fills this like narrative gap, and then after the merge in September, the narratives from the actual like fundamentals of the asset start to take place. Like you could talk about the environmental part, the issuance part. Those could happen.
Isn't it funny how much price really dictates the narrative itself?
Yeah.
Right.
Like there really is no rhyme or reason except for price, and then you backfill afterwards.
Yeah, but so what about the reasons that this is just a bear market rally? Because the one thing that feels a little odd is the time. It's only been when was the peak? What month was the where we hit like 4,800?
Well,
in ETH, because this would feel like one of the shorter bear markets of an asset.
Okay,
so how do we resolve?
Here's what I'm thinking on this, right? Like a lot of people view the bear bull marker as like the price. Like the higher price is where you start the bear from, right? But like crypto is more of this kind of risk on, risk off asset, right? So the peak of the bull to me isn't the point we hit the highest price. It's the point we hit the highest level of like overvaluation, right? So if you want to simplify crypto and be like, it's basically a log growth curve, right? And then you do some regression to, people do this as a model, right? What you would measure the top as is like the maximum deviation from like the base valuation, right? So for Bitcoin and for ETH, but for Bitcoin especially, that was actually April of last year. Like the first top was more of a top than the second top. Even though the second top had a higher price, Bitcoin was way more overheated in April, like super overheated, like max overheated. Like it had gone to like an extreme amount above quote unquote fair value, however you want to define that. It's obviously a bit of a nebulous term. So from that perspective, we are 15 months past that now, and it starts to look like, maybe this is like not a V recovery, but maybe that was the start of accumulation, right? Like, so it does kind of make sense to me. And it fits in. It has confluence with other stuff. It has confluence with the merge, which is really nice.
15 months is a long enough time, I think, to have a bear market. But like,
even if you believe in the diminishing returns.
Agree. Okay. Yeah. So, and I think the rainbow chart held.
The rainbow held beautifully. Well, so far.
But
if that was, like, it held.
There are macroeconomic factors still at play, like liquidity still being pulled out of the system. We're seeing companies on hiring freezes and perhaps firing employees. Like, all of this lends itself to like remove money from the system, which I think could last longer than this 15-month period.
Right. So I was looking it up because I was trying to get an idea of like what's the status on the quantitative tightening. So in June we started off rolling about like $50 billion of securities off the balance sheet. That's mostly treasuries and then some mortgage-backed securities. And in September, that doubles to just under about 100 billion a month. And that is double the pace of the quantitative tightening that we did between 2017 and 2019. And that doesn't take into account the scenario where the Fed says, well, not only are we going to let these mortgage-backed securities run off, we're actually going to start selling them in the open market. So it's probably been counterbalanced a little by some international money, coming in, some international money flows coming in. But I think your point still remains that we haven't even really hit the true stride of the liquidity down cycle, if you will. And I guess the question is that, well, how much does that actually affect our ETH and Bitcoin prices? And I think you even got a little Twitter spat about it. It's not. Bitcoin is not the best inflation hedge. It is.
Well, it is an inflation hedge. We just don't define inflation properly.
Well, I think you were like talking about debasement, like the increase in the money supply was more of your argument, correct?
Like I ascribe to like Jeff Snyder's take on this, which is that like it's basically a version of Milton Friedman's, like inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon, and it makes sense, right? Like if we assume the world is fine and everything's normal, and then tomorrow for some reason we just suddenly nuke half of the oil in the world and the price of gas doubles. That's quote unquote inflation on the CPI. But why would Bitcoin go up there compared to, okay, everything's normal, and then we just airdrop everybody cash and then everybody has twice as much money as possible, and now oil goes up 2x in price? Clearly, those are two completely different scenarios. We get to the same CPI number, right? And we call them both inflation. And one of them, Bitcoin, is obviously going to be useful, and the other one, it's obviously going to be useless. So in fact, it's going to be negatively correlated.
I love this definition, this nuance.
Yeah, but the question is like, if we still believe we're seeing less liquidity in the market and increasingly so in the future, how much do we tie that to the price of crypto assets?
Okay, so I'll go super quick on this because I don't want to talk too much. But like we before were in the paradigm where stuff was happening that the market didn't price in, and while it was pricing it in, like everything was chaos, right? We talk a lot about how markets look 12, 18 months ahead, blah, 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 blah. And we come with these plans going into the bear, right? So for example, one of the mental models I had was that Fed is political, inflation bad for elections. What they're going to do is tighten going into elections. They're going to try to kill inflation, but then right around elections, they're going to try to get it down to like 5%, and then boom, asset prices back up so that people are like feeling like inflation's down, and then they're also getting richer. And so I had this mental model where like I'm going to buy end of July, August or something. This is going back in like February, January. But then you get into the bear, and then you get your own like bear momentum, and you start drinking your bear Kool-Aid because you've been right a lot too. You start thinking, I'm a genius, it's going to keep going. And then you start forgetting that markets are forward looking. Everybody has the same idea now. Everybody's talking about the same bear things. Everybody's positions short. Put ratios are through the roof. Like it's just, and at a certain point, you're going to be like, wait, is it really? Yeah, QT is bad, but like also futures are pricing in rate cuts like in early 2023.
Right.
So yeah, it is bad, but it's you gotta look forward at a certain
But
point.
I don't think they're going to do it. And now maybe that's like my little short opportunity.
You don't think who's gonna do what?
I don't think we're going to cut rates as quickly as they're imagining. Like inflation is not going to be tamed as quickly as we imagine, not at least to the satisfactory level that they're targeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
this is a good debate we can have because like I probably I sort of disagree and sort of agree. I think people are really into this kind of binary phenomenon where we're like we go down, we go up, we go down, we go up. But like people don't price in crab, they don't price in volatility like chop sideways, they don't price in we over tighten, they freak out, things are crashing. We open the floodgates again, we go back up, and then 6 months later they're
there's
like,
there's no like
oh God,
other one.
Yeah, like we could be in this paradigm where the Fed is like wildly steering the car like on the road, and they just are shifting like every 7 or 8 months for like a few. Like that's possible. You have to price that into your mental model, I think.
Well, can I ask you, in your model, do you see GDP going down, real recession, also earnings of the S&P 500 going down, and do you eventually see those indices lower than they were, like seeing lower lows?
I think earnings probably do miss. I think the stocks. I feel much more confident in stocks trading lower than I do crypto. I don't think crypto is going to tank with stocks to the same extent it did before. Like I think S&P new lows does not mean Bitcoin new lows anymore.
Yeah, because I think we will see some, lower lows in S&P 500, NASDAQ potentially. But the question remains is like, will Bitcoin and ETH also see those?
Decoupling.
Maybe, right?
Yeah. It depends.
The merge would be a good reason why they do.
It depends what your
And would
your
ETH
timelines
lead that?
are.
What's that?
Would ETH lead that? Because that's what we've been seeing so far.
Well, ETH has dramatically outpaced Bitcoin on this
Thir-
last
30,
7-day bull
like
market.
35% at one point last
Just
week.
like crushing Bitcoin.
Crazy.
We're still not in that ETH BTC corridor that we were, that kind of like upward corridor. But
No, we're
I wouldn't
still like
expect it to-
below the
yeah.
Bankless episode, I think. Which
Right.
was right before it just
It
fell off
went
a cliff.
it went below that corridor. That kind of.
But I do think we'll recover that.
Okay.
It's kind of hard not to. And yeah, like I was saying, like all this stuff it's so highly dependent on what is your investment time horizon, right? Because if you're like, hey, Steven, I'm making a 5-year portfolio. I'm just investing. I'm saying I don't want to touch it. Like I very much like subscribe to this theory that like if you zoom out, there's too much debt in the Western world. There's not enough growth. There's like these demographic There's all these things that are actually inherently deflationary in a world where we need money and growth to keep expanding. Eventually, rubber's going to meet the road. We're either going to have to cut and do austerity and deflate, or we're going to have to just print money. And eventually, like I agree with you, we're going to print money. I think a lot of this is just it's a facade. It's kabuki theater. Eventually, we're going to get in a paradigm where we are all getting like gas cards in the mail, and this is going to have like it's just an inevitability to me. So I do think Bitcoin's time will come. I think this is going to be a thing. I think if you buy at these levels in 5 years, you're going to be way up, right? So if I talk a lot, and I'm often thinking on like 3-month time horizons. Like when I saw crypto this summer, we got really like there's a certain point where you're like, there's a high probability of like a 50% rally. And you have an easy point where you're like, I'm wrong, I got to get out. Like when you get those setups, you kind of got to take them as like a swing trader, but it's not the same mentality as somebody who's like a long-term hodler.
Yeah.
takes.
The ETH call premiums were so fucking cheap.
Oh, they're so cheap. Oh,
Like
They still are. They were.
like
Obviously
a
were.
week and 2 weeks ago,
Right.
a week ago, when we were talking about in the Discord.
yeah. Where I was like, I should buy these Solana. I should buy these
I
calls.
pulled the trigger on
We
a
didn't.
few of
They're
them,
up,
but
like-
I didn't like shove in on it. But like, I am happy that I 3x'd on those like so quickly, so easily. That was like the only thing I did right.
Sounds nice.
It's nice.
Wait, so do you? I'm like, I think that we're done in terms of max pain. Do you guys think Do you guys think we've hit max pain, or do you think crypto is going to actually?
I don't
go
think
lower?
the economy's done with max pain.
Right.
It's like, how do you define max pain? Because like a bottom, I think that
Max pain is. I'll define it as lower lows on ETH.
because like max pain for me would be like having to talk to more of our normie friends for 2 more years as we continue to do this shit. And they're like, you're still doing crypto, dude? And I'm like, like, that's more painful than just like hitting 800 again. Like, I don't care about 800.
Oh, we're opposite. I only care about the money.
I think the price action was strong in a good way. Like the price action, probably switches the probabilities that, we don't hit a lower low higher. It wasn't like weak price action, getting above that 1200 mark. And then those are kind of low volume areas, like 1200 to 1700 is like kind of like on the volume profile seems pretty low. So I wouldn't be surprised if we keep going to like 1800.
You're not FOMO buying in now, are you? Like, I'd actually just want to ask you guys, you're not buying here.
No, I still think you have time.
I don't think there's a problem buying here. If
You're
on
overbought on like a
no, if you're
7
on the 5-year time horizon.
I still think you have time.
on a 5-year time horizon.
Yeah.
No, even on like a 3-month time horizon, I think.
What are you
time.
saying?
That I would expect a little bit of reversion after what you call a 100% run in like 2 weeks. Like,
Okay,
That's
here.
that's what I'm saying though.
yeah, I'm not gonna like FOMO in now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess to Nick's point, recalibrating the probability of like getting 3-digit ETH is fair. But like, I don't want to buy 1600 ETH right after.
What are you going to do
100%
if you've seen
rally.
nothing more than like 10%?
Yeah,
drawdowns
for
from
context, today's July 20th, and price of
Sell
ETH is
puts.
right around $1,500, just for context.
I'll probably sell puts, and if I lose them, so be it.
Cool.
I love that strategy right now. Just sell aggressive puts. If you buy, like, whatever. If you want to own it anyway, it's pretty nice, and you can do that.
Have you guys seen that Pablo Escobar meme from Narcos where he's just lonely?
on like the swing, just
Yeah, he's just Pablo lonely.
sitting on a bench.
That's what my ETH bids look like right now.
Literally,
Just like sitting at
that's-
900, just waiting by myself.
I would say that's
So-
the best meme of like 2021 or 2020 it was.
I love that
whatever.
meme.
I canceled so many 900 ETH bids at like $920 ETH. 'cause
Yeah, just no, not
I
cheap
had
enough.
that was a classic example of like having a plan in advance, and then like you get like emotional in the midst of it, and then and that's kind of like what I feel like we're doing now in the bears, because a lot of the stuff
just gonna ask that.
I'm glad I wrote that thread on Twitter, because I put a lot of stuff in writing, and now I'm like looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you said this, and these things are kind of happening.
Glad you brought that up, actually, because like, when I was buying Bitcoin, it was like around like 7K, but I didn't really like go heavy until it was like 9, 10K. But then when it got to 12, I was like, well, this is clearly too expensive. And I stopped buying, and I had more that I wanted to put in. I was like, I don't know, but in retrospect, it seems like such a dumb move. It was just a 20% difference. It felt like a lot at the time.
Can I ask a
I'm glad you
spicier
brought that up.
question?
Yeah.
Spice it up a little
Spice
bit.
it up.
Okay, so like we've talked about markets here. We talked about is the bottom. What about allocation within buying or selling? Like, people in the Discord have been asking Mr. Personality here why he has abandoned Bitcoin entirely.
Yeah.
Why are you out of Bitcoin entirely? You just said
Given everything you've just said.
you just said that like Bitcoin now in 5 years is a good buy.
Yeah, it's a good buy in 5 years, but like I
don't
tend
have
to
the time
trade
for
over. Yeah, and I don't like, and honestly, I think the main Bitcoin narrative is like a 40-year narrative. Honestly,
Nick's
it's
under boobs are
Nick is so sweaty.
It is
Nick
so
is literally
hot in here.
lactating.
This is like Germany in 2022 in July. We just have no air conditioning.
This is a non-sponsored
Can someone-
podcast. We
can
cannot
someone
afford HVAC.
Donate 0.3 ETH to Steven to get his air conditioning.
I still maintain
Probably still wouldn't do
8
it.
sleep as a cape.
I love going to bed to my 8 sleep. It's my little private.
I was setting up
AC
the
setting.
set, like all the
a little
podcast
igloo.
equipment, and Nick just looks at me and he's like, I'm not going to say anything. And then I look back at him like 3 seconds later. I'm like, do you see how much sweat is on my face? He's like,
Oh my
I didn't
god,
want to
my
throw you
ears
off.
are so sweaty.
Armand
Armand
is
made
the
us wear these
sweator.
headphones 4 episodes ago, and it's so hot.
You just undo and splash.
You know, it's a bad setup. We got the windows open. There's like jets taking off, dogs barking
There's a
next
dog
door.
fight a little earlier.
I know.
Oh man.
All right, go ahead
Back
with
to the
your
question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's a good question. I think your preference for Bitcoin depends on your duration and how often you want to move in and out of the market, and like how high your like crypto IQ is. So the longer your duration and the lower your crypto IQ, the more you should just buy Bitcoin and just go back to work and just not worry about anything, because there is execution risk in ETH long term. It's a lot of stuff that can happen. But if we're talking about like 6 months, like the 9 months, 12 months, like the merge is the most obvious trade I've ever seen in history. And I know this might sound weird if you heard me talking like 2 months ago, but it was different 2 months ago. 2 months ago, it was like, it was like 2,700 and it's like, it's not priced in, and the world was crumbling. And I was like, I don't know. It could be bad. But at 1,000, at like 1,100, when everybody's like, it's over, it's done, it's like everything's going to hell.
Liquidations left and right.
And you're getting told like it's probably going to go live in September. Like at that's different. Now you're 60% off. Now a lot of people have punted on the dream, and I think you got to buy there, right? And like, why would Bitcoin go up before ETH does, given that? Like, if you understand the sort of like economics of the merge and what this is going to happen for, it's just, I can't conceive of like Bitcoin to me is like basically like, it's like a call option on the probability we just change the entire world monetary system, which I think is possible, but like, it's not happening this year. It's not happening next year.
Well, let me ask you guys, because I was the latest one into crypto. I was the last one of us four to get into the crypto game. And what I observed when I got into it was that when it's a crypto bull market, Bitcoin is usually the lead dog of the pack. So I would just say that, like, in what way would Bitcoin sort of lead the way? It's like in every way that I sort of got into this game, I saw that Bitcoin would lead the way.
I think it's done now. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there were like 2 or 3 points last bull where people were like, this is it. This is the Bitcoin. And then it just didn't happen.
well, if you remember in 2017, 2018, we all used to compare everything to BTC pairs. You would measure the relative value against BTC, but that doesn't feel right. Doesn't even feel right fundamentally. I don't think anyone compares. Maybe Benjamin Cohen still uses like BTC pairs, but like outside of that, I don't really see.
Yeah, some traders trade it, but
But what we care about is like, is it bleeding against ETH? You know,
and yeah, like I think now you measure your alts versus ETH. You don't measure them,
of course,
versus Bitcoin,
especially if they're ERC20.
And like back in the day when everything had a BTC pair, like the flow made sense. If you have to trade something versus BTC, you first have to buy BTC. So it made sense that dollars would go to BTC, and then you trade BTC alt pairs. But like you can get dollar pairs on like very obscure altcoins now on like Binance and FTX and these
Even
exchanges.
Coinbase.
Even Coinbase is some
There's
of
a
the
guy
most,
taking
some of
money
most
at the
obscure
back door,
altcoins.
to throw those things on there.
We've listed Shoecoin. You're like, what the hell's that? I'm like, I don't know. This intern like bribed me, and now it's a 3
Still
million
can't buy
market cap.
staked ETH, but yeah.
Yeah, it's absurd. But yeah, like I don't know. Bitcoiners they're coping hard right now. Like the cope is it's very palpable on Twitter. There's like this like desperation. There's this cope, and a lot of the ETH threads, when you read I'm sounding like Hoffman now. Well, like when you read the ETH threads, like there's a lot of like the discussion makes sense. It's sort of nuanced. People are talking about like real things and real metrics, and there's like the Bitcoin threads are just like the memes are bad. Like the Bitcoiners have terrible memes now. The memes are like they're the crypto equivalent of like memes my mom posts. They're these weird, crappy, like kind of boomer memes, like pro Bitcoin boomer memes, and just like they just call ETH a shitcoin, and there's just nothing happening there. It's just very hard to get on board.
Let me ask you something new. So you've talked in the past about crypto 2 and crypto 3, or crypto 1 and crypto 2, right?
Market caps.
Yeah, the market caps of crypto assets at large. And I can't remember which one was which. Crypto 2 removes Bitcoin. Is that right?
Yeah, Crypto 2 removes Bitcoin. Crypto 3 removes Bitcoin and ETH.
Got it. Okay, so when you're looking at those market caps in aggregate, we probably touched down on levels that were like probably from the old bear market-ish, or like the old bull market, maybe like the 2017 bull or something. And my thought when we look back that far, it's like, well, so much has happened within crypto, meaning like DeFi happened, NFTs happened. There's like incredible innovation and use cases that have occurred since the last one, but we almost hit the exact same market caps. That has to be sort of a buy signal just in and of itself, regardless of macro and all this other stuff that we talk about.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention something about that and I forgot. So those things are a little off because they include stable coins, which I feel like makes them slightly less useful.
Wait, hold on though, because stable coins is actually like the killer use case of all of crypto.
But to me, I want to measure like the aggregate risk on or risk off, and then like having the cash elements in there sort of dilutes the metric a little bit. But stablecoins are not a huge chunk of market cap, so I think today you can still get good signal from it, but you probably should be subtracting stablecoin market cap from that.
Right. You add Tether and USDC, and you're probably almost at like half a ETH or something like that.
Like what's really interesting actually is if you take total market, like if you're on TradingView or something, which is like a good way to look at this. If you take the total crypto market cap and you plot it on like a weekly, like we always talked a lot in the past about the hallowed like 200 week moving average, which I've said I think is kind of useless for Bitcoin for
Bitcoin
reasons.
just got above that, by the way.
It is above it now.
Just above it.
But I think that as bull markets go on and your coin gets more and more established, that becomes like less of a like it. Pretty soon you'd look at the 300 week, and then you look at it's just with the way of the diminishing returns of growth and everything. But when you look at the crypto market cap on the weekly, and you plot like it's like this perfect like it hits the 200 week, and it just literally accumulates there for like 5 or 6 weeks before this pump happened. I pulled up that chart. I was like, why didn't I look at that? How did I miss that? I was looking at all these like
so the 200 week on crypto market cap, not C1 or 2 or whatever you're talking about.
Total everything.
Just total everything. 200 week, you think that fits pretty well?
We hit that. We wicked below it like a couple times, closed above, multiple weeks in a row. Like when you pull that up, you're like, oh damn.
Sometimes it is that easy. Damn.
And in the moment, you're like, oh god, I could go lower. But if you zoom out, you're like, I'm buying the 200 of
Anyone
this
got
asset
that chart
class.
up? Because I want to see how close we got to like years ago crypto market caps, because so much has happened.
We retested basically the exact high of last bull run, I think. Here, let me pull it up for you.
17, 18?
Yeah, like
we're and in 17, 18, this was all a freaking dream plus Bitcoin.
All right, so I got my trading view open. It's not loading.
I did have the rainbow chart open because you mentioned it earlier.
The rainbow chart's interesting too. Like we made that out to be a meme, and it's like it's looking like it held perfectly at the very bottom band.
Well, when stock to flow broke so badly, I'm like, I'm not buying.
I mean,
any
stock
shit anymore.
to flow. I feel like everybody was always like, this seems a little memey. it seems a pretty bad model.
So if it makes you feel any better, you're still in the light blue, which is the second rung from the bottom.
Still definitely. It's one is like, this is a fire sale.
So that's the bottom. Basically a fire sale. The
Basically
one above
a
that
fire
is
sale,
buy
yeah.
in all caps with an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's total crypto. Oh, the other thing I did here. Do you know what a pitchfork is?
No.
I drew this pitchfork a while ago actually, and I got the weekly chart up here. We'll have to live stream my screen sometime. Look at this. Look at this beautiful confluence. So we've got. This is the 200.
Use your words. I can't see your screen.
Oh, I wish you guys could see this.
Camera. It might actually be
Put it
in
in the
frame
camera.
of the camera.
So if you pull up this chart, it's a wick below the 200 week holds. Next week holds. Next week holds. Next week wick below holds. Next week wick below holds. Boom, up. And this is at the very bottom of my little pitchfork
So
here.
Which chart is this?
This is total.
So
Total market cap. Like
TLDR.
C1.
This is total crypto.
It's a
market
screaming
cap.
buy.
Look at that.
Screaming buy,
Look at that lovely confluence there. That's,
Crypto total market cap.
looks good, right?
Yeah, looks
like you
pretty.
want to.
Looks nice little consolidation.
Looks like you want
along
to buy the hell out of that chart.
It really does.
It's a good looking chart. Now these are just lines on a screen at the end of the day.
I'll say you paint very good lines.
But I do like to think I draw pretty good lines. So it looks good. I mean, but don't get me wrong. Like two months ago, I was like, this thing looks like it's going to 300 billion market cap, and we bottomed so far at like 750 billion. So that's a long ways off. But
I want to sell the shit out of this rally, but I'm now.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
To build on Eric's previous question. it was like, okay, I've always known and have seen that Bitcoin is going to lead these rallies. That's like the big dog that when the bear market and when the bull run begins, that's going to be the number one asset. How much is this current situation indicative of, representative of the merge? And is this really just the one time that this might be possible and that this narrative leads, versus in the future, if you see some sort of bear market again and a bull run takes place or a bear rally takes place, why wouldn't it be that Bitcoin then regains its position of like leading the pack?
God, I want to take that a step further too, because it's like you brought up ETH essentially versus Bitcoin because of the merge. And my next thought is like, well, what about alts versus ETH? Like even go further out on the risk curve.
That plays forever,
right?
Basically.
Well, if this is sort of rally time, well, then you want to go furthest beta out. Right. And like you'd rather own Sol than ETH and maybe
Matic.
Even freaking DeFi
for
or whatever.
each market that comes for each run that comes after.
So is this really like alt season for the next 2 months? Because like I'm actually positioned against that, and I'm not asking for a friend.
I don't know. I feel like the risk return on alt season is not in your favor, but
well, clearly, particularly after being down 90%. But then again, like the tokenomics of a lot of these projects are like literally designed to fail. Particularly against ETH. Like if I can long ETH and short DeFi, I might take that all day, every day. But there are times where that still loses, of course.
I mean, beating ETH that's your metric for the next year. Like, I don't think anybody cares about beating Bitcoin anymore. I mean, Bitcoin's approaching like a flat Earth status with like the amount of just data in front of them that they're ignoring. It's kind of crazy. You know how Balaji talks about how you can have like a great product or you can have great distribution.
Yeah.
And like the media companies like have a shit product, but they have good distribution. And so they sort of just fight to maintain the distribution and don't care about the product. That's like what Bitcoin is starting to do. Like they kind of got like a shit product. It doesn't have adoption of it. And they're starting to use like government and regulation. They're calling for like ETH to be labeled as a security. They're starting to use like the means of distribution to hurt their competition. But this is the same stuff you see in every sort of last gasp of a dying product or dying. Like that's what they do. They eventually can't compete on products. So
it makes you like ripe for disruption, essentially. Like mainstream traditional media is like ripe for disruption. Like I think like people prefer conversations like we're having rather than tuning in to like listen to what XYZ guy says on the news desk. Like
gold doesn't try to be Apple. It's like we're just shiny rock. It's a safe haven. It's an inflation. Bitcoin still has this thing where they think that, like they're like I don't know, like a shittier U.S. competitor to Huawei, and they're dying and their market cap's going down, but they're like we're Apple. We're Apple, and no, you're not. It's like it's a different product. You're competing in like a different realm, and you just seem delusional when you say all this.
No one wants to do that. No one wants to like own that.
I mean, but they could. They used to like the idea that
they could if they can clearly see it was for their benefit.
Right. They could still be best at something, and instead they're choosing to be like worst at everything.
They want to be the biggest. But they just think if it's not the
put
biggest,
these two things together, you still don't disagree with your previous point. Right?
What's that?
Well, Bitcoin in and of itself is still an incredible asset to hold over
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you call it dying. I just want to make sure we're clear that not dying to zero, not dying to the bottom, just dying in terms of like being that big daddy leader and that potentially money, like really ultimately, and the software layer of the internet. Which is what ETH is.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for bringing that up because, it probably sounds like if I made $1 billion tomorrow, I would switch a lot of my ETH holdings to Bitcoin because at that point I'm in
lower beta
preservation mode.
Yeah,
like you have to think about the risk on your investments
That's
and
what
like how much work you want to put in. And if I wake up tomorrow and I have $1 billion, I'm not grinding like low cap project discords like 9 hours a day to find alpha. I'm not keeping up on the merge. I'm not like Twitter. I just want to put money in a particular allocation. I'm giving up return and I'm decreasing my risk, and I'm happy with that, right? The problem is like Bitcoin still pushes this narrative that it will be the only one true coin someday, and everything will be built on it, and it will have the largest market cap. Like they can't get over the fact that they won't. There's a world that could exist where they could still be the thing that they are,
They just
be
haven't
valuable
let
and have a
go
lower market cap than
of
ETH.
this like zero sum idea of theirs that is like a huge part of their ethos as a community. And that's we covered that in the last episode. It's the toxicity that we see.
Oh, and that toxicity, I think, is just driving people like me who I find it less fun to play on their team.
For sure.
Which is like,
When I saw some comments
I'll
today,
play on any team, but it's like not yours. This sucks.
I mean, Twitter is not representative of the entire community, and even Bitcoiners will gladly tell you openly that there are some very toxic people in their community that don't represent the whole community. You see that in everything. The bigger the community gets, the more bad apples. Like, I think, to be fair, that's an important thing to acknowledge, right? But that said, when the bad apples become representative of the political party, in a sense, at large, that's disturbing. And then it makes people go like, yeah, I don't really want to represent myself with that, because what do the rest of these people know? They only know what the people with the loudspeaker say. And so then you look for new communities. But I could see that just trickling and trickling and trickling forever. You could see the same thing happening with ETH, and people would go to Solana for the same reason. Like, it's just a very clear possibility that just continues forever. And then what that ultimately creates is truly a multi-chain future, which is good for everybody, I think. But I think that's what it ultimately creates.
Different use cases. I think that's fine.
I think so. I think it's insane to me that like Bitcoiners wants to sort of be some real world reserve asset, and they can't even get people in the digital world to use it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, nobody uses Bitcoin to buy NFTs. Nobody uses Bitcoin to do, like, nobody sends money. Like, all of the Bitcoin stuff is sort of like just store of what, which is fine. Like, people aren't sending gold back and forth in the real world.
The best at it.
You just buy it and you put it in a vault. That's totally fine, right? But the pitch in the real, it doesn't align with what's happening in the digital realm. Like, if you can't even be something that people want to buy, like do monetary activity with in the digital realm, why are you even talking about being like quote unquote money in the real world? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I went back and looked at your alt season idea. The only one that kept close with ETH was Matic, and they actually
over the last 7 days, or
over the last like 2 weeks roughly.
Okay.
They kind of kept up with appreciation, and I think if you measure it from like July 1st, they may even have greater appreciation. But they actually had some like fundamental announcements. There was,
I
like,
own
a Disney
zero Matic.
I think Matic's done in
short.
this pump.
I'm gonna short this shit.
I mean, it's up close to 100%.
I mean,
since July 1st.
Matic pumped on the Disney stuff, or pre-pumped on the Disney stuff, and then they've been teasing this announcement, which is basically just
I just looked for it. I couldn't find it.
We got a EVM compatible ZK rollup, and it's coming out in the future. And then the market, like when they announced that, you could see the chart go like, and then I was like, oh, this is done.
But anyway, like all your other higher beta tokens didn't really respond that well. They bled against ETH.
Yeah,
so you're right. You think your trade's still.
I'm holding.
Your trade's still good.
Holding
what are you holding?
So is crypto dead?
Short alt L1s, short DeFi, long ETH.
Crypto's
that's
not
my play.
dead.
I know. So what does this look most like to you guys? New bull or bear rally?
Yeah, let's bring it home.
Bring it home.
I'm still so okay with this like long accumulation period type of mentality, and I'm not rushing to buy right now. I'm not even closing my shorts. There we go.
For me, it's a bear rally. I think the first of this magnitude, but it's a bear rally.
I think it's a face ripper bear rally, and I don't know if we'll measure kind of the bottoms. Like if you go back and look at the future, where will you measure the bull market run starting from? I don't think we'll at all measure it from this point. The bottom, different story. We could very well have already passed that, but I don't think we'll measure the bull market run from here. Sideways, crab style.
Yeah. I think the worst is over. I think the Fed I think even if the Fed hikes 100 this month, I don't even think the market will tank that much. I just actually think like so much bearishness has been priced in.
Right. Agree with
At
that.
75, I think we go up. Like the dollar can go higher, but like it at a certain point, it causes the world to go to hell. Like the dollar cannot go beyond a certain
I
point.
closed my UUP. I forgot to mention that. I sort of
Is that a
That's
long
the-
dollar ETF?
long dollar against other fiats.
Yeah,
I closed that out.
I like that. I like that.
just feel like.
Oh wait, did you
squeezed
sell
it.
your UUP?
Yeah,
Oh, nice call.
I think I just squeezed all the water out of the
Squeezed.
towel.
Did you
It's
guys
gross.
read the Arthur article, by the way?
No.
When you say that phrase, I don't know which article.
The most recent one.
Okay. Because I literally went to go look at his art. I'm like, is he talking about the third most recent? All right.
No, the one they just came out with.
All right.
Yeah, I read it and I thought about it, and I actually think the thesis makes a lot of sense. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, I actually hadn't heard. We think about QE as this thing that happens within the context of the U.S., right? So the idea that the Fed would just buy other government bonds. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it before, but I hadn't. Apparently, people talk about this, but it was like a concept where I was like, oh wait, that could happen. So the idea that the Fed would print and then buy Japanese debt, buy euro debt, it hadn't occurred to me. But when I looked into it and I researched it more, like I kind of think that actually is the most probable scenario at this point. And the yen is getting to a point where it's going to blow up, and either the yen goes up and that causes all hell to break out, or bonds go the other way, and
the yen
that
is
causes
so
all
weird,
hell to break
though.
out.
The yen still has inflation at like 1%. Everything else
They
is-
can't create inflation if they wanted to.
Everything else is getting smacked, and I think all other central banks are like gonna get into like a hiking competition against each other, and like the yen is its own animal. I'd put that aside, but I can see a world where like everyone starts hiking more and more dramatically, and like
Oh, I think the exact opposite is going to happen because we talked a little bit earlier about how everybody's in this deflationary bind, right? And I think Japan is the best embodiment of that. Like they tried to create inflation for like almost 4 decades and couldn't
Right.
do it. Like they're just so behind the curve there. Europe is slightly worse. The US is in the best position. I think the future looks like everybody trying to devalue their currency, right? The most, not like trying to have like higher rates. I think the future ultimately looks like a much lower dollar. I think the world only functions if the dollar goes back down again. Otherwise, everything blows up, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't
but
be in
how
a
do you
getting
even
ugly.
get there first? Like you need strength in local currencies. Like that's the first move. Otherwise, the dollar runs away.
Plaza Accord V2.
Plaza Accord.
Remind me, Plaza Accord?
Plaza Accord was in the 80s. So the dollar started, the dollar, TLDR, the dollar ripped to crazy levels. When the dollar rips, it's bad, right? Because
Yeah.
think about just oil, right? These like Japan
It just
doesn't
breaks
produce
everything.
any oil internally.
Yeah.
So they have to buy oil or the country, it goes boom.
Mm-hmm.
Oil is priced in dollars. The more the dollar goes up, the more it costs for them to import energy. This happens a lot across the world, and it's not just oil; it's a bunch of other stuff too. So
yeah.
this is sort of like relates to. Have you heard of the Triffin dilemma?
No.
Just tell
Triffin?
every- Triffin dilemma. It's probably best if people just like Wikipedia. But the sort of Cliff's notes is that like as like the world reserve currency, like if your currency is just sort of destined to go down, or the world like explodes, it creates these like inherent like sort of trade deficits and flows of capital. So in a world where like the dollar is going up, the whole system it can't sustain itself.
Totally.
That's why we had the Plaza Accord. That's why we had to just like, nope, we basically like flipped the table, the board game over. in
So the
80s.
Plaza,
We're like,
Plaza Accord says what? Like
Plaza Accord was like, the biggest nations, mainly Germany,
Agreeing to-
Japan, and U.S. agreeing to do some open market operations to devalue the dollar.
okay.
It worked for Germany, didn't necessarily work for Japan. But in any case, that there was like, oh my God, the world's about to blow. Let's meet and figure out a way out.
This is a scenario that gold bugs talk about, right? They're gonna like do this reset thing where they get together and they're just like, okay, these currencies are now worth this, and they have to adjust up against something. That something is going to be like stuff that can't be printed: gold, oil, commodities.
Right.
That's sort of the thing they've been pushing for a while. It's also kind of a Bitcoin type bull case as well. It does make sense to me. The question, like they were pushing this in 2008. So if you made that trade, you've been getting wrecked for like a decade and a half. You know, it's very difficult to be right and to be right on the on the correct timeline. Otherwise, like trading is both direction and timing, or you can get wrecked, and that's why most people suggest
sizing.
Yeah, sizing too. That's why most people just go long and just invest in a bunch of stuff and go back to your life.
Did you submit your answer for bull run or bear market rally?
He never has like a definitive answer. So
I have a definitive answer.
What is the answer?
Okay, so I think that
you're gonna do the same thing you just did all over again.
no, I'm not. I have a very definitive answer.
Okay.
I think the worst is over. I think we chop probably upwards for the next few months. I think if you look at past tightening cycles, we've followed this exact same pattern. This one is a little different, so I hate to draw conclusions, but past tightening cycles, like if I'm talking about stock specifically, you get your kind of like easy straight. The market recovers, it goes up. It's like, this is great. And then the Fed goes, we got to pull back a little bit. And then the market goes, no. And then it chops down and the Fed hikes rates. But then the market adjusts to the new paradigm. And then it's like, okay, things aren't that bad. Let's resume. And you have a period of sideways, upwards volatility. And then you actually get this kind of melt up period where like the Fed eventually goes, I think we overcorrected. We're going to pull back a little bit. They flatten. And when the Fed flattens, the market, which has been pricing in continued stuff, goes, oh, sweet. And like the expectations adjust the other direction. Money's cheaper to borrow. People go lever. Like all these things happen. And you get this like period of like melt up actually right before the Fed goes, oh no, we messed up. We're going to crash. And then they start dropping rates, but it's too late. And then you get a crash. And then you sort of start the cycle all over again where rates go back to nothing. And you kind of do the whole thing. Like this is what's happened in the past. And it honestly makes sense to me right now. Like we've hit peak inflation. I think everybody's max bear, everybody's max hedged. Even if stuff goes down more, should go down more, the expectations are so far to the bottom now that like anything aside from World War III, I think is going to produce upward stuff. And I do think the system is breaking. I think
that's
the Fed
what you don't
knows
know,
the
Stephen.
system is
World
breaking.
War III is coming from our last episode.
I listened to it. I don't think World War III is coming, but that'd be a fun thing to talk about on Spaces.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. Well, I'm not used to rapping here, but we're rapping here.
I'm going to wrap here.
Because we're going to talk about racism.
Wow, that was such a clean segue.
It's a very perfect segue. I'm actually very excited about it. I don't know of any friends, let alone any community that I could ever talk about that topic with.
In a dispassionate way.
Yeah. So let's save it. I'm excited for
Monday,
it.
right?
Yeah, well, we'll see. Let's just pause here.
Probably
we'll see you
Monday.
guys in the next episode. One love.
Bye, guys.
Bye.